Today's episode, Bulls, Sacred Cows, and Other Ruminates. We're going to go back to 9,500 to 11,000 BCE on the plains of Tastepla region of Turkey. Göbekli Tepe is considered pre-agricultural and prominently hunter-gatherers. However, it is associated with early efforts at animal management. The auroch, an extinct species of large wild cattle, roamed the lush open grasslands and sparse forests, which would create suitable habitat for the entheogenic mushrooms to thrive, such as Psilocybe cubensis, which grows in dung, and Amanita muscaria, that grows under the pines and oak of the forests. As early man foraged for the bounty the land provided, they would have found fungi of all varieties. Through the ages, it was learned which ones they could use to make fire, which ones were edible and good, the ones that would kill you, the ones that would be beneficial for the treatment of illness, and a few which had the capacity to let one see visions and travel to unexpected territories of the mind and explore the meaning of life and death. These entheogenic mushrooms most likely were used ritually in the fertility cults that existed at the time. There are several artifacts from Göbekli Tepe that are a clue to this theory. First, we have the mushroom-shaped T-pillars. Other examples are a standing stone and sculpted heads that have exemplified foreheads, the seat of thoughts, emotions, and spiritual awareness. Were these representations of the spiritual leaders who possessed the knowledge and command of the sacred mushroom? We have also found the mushroom-shaped scepters, most likely the sacred regalia of the shaman or clan leader. Another important statue is the man holding his penis, which exemplifies the phallus, which represents procreative power, regeneration, and agricultural abundance. Anything in the nature exhibiting phallic similarities also possessed the same attributes. The mushroom's mysterious growth and psychoactive properties gave it a special place in the spiritual ceremonies, being exalted to godlike status. Although mushrooms were a significant aspect of their spiritual beliefs, many other deities were worshipped, such as the sun, moon, earth mother, and things of nature such as rivers and springs. However, the auroch held a special place in the lives of the people. Besides being a source of meat and hides for clothing and shelter, they symbolized strength, sexual potency, and fertility. There is an ancient folklore across much of the world that exemplifies the relationship of the auroch and mushrooms. When the bellow of the bull is heard in the distance, mushrooms would soon follow. Here the bull is a symbol of virility, thunder, and creative force of nature. The mushroom represents the sudden bounty of the earth, following the inseminating sounds. On a side note, modern mycologists have discovered low-frequency sound waves similar to the distant bellow can stimulate mycelial growth and increased biomass. This relationship between mushrooms and the sacred cows can be seen worldwide. Next, we will go to Sumeria. Sumeria, 4,500 to 4,000 BCE. Cattle symbolized divine power, fertility, and the moon. Deities depicted as bulls and cows represent strength and virility, such as Ninsan, the lady wild cow, and bulls associated with the moon god Nana or Sin. Cattle were central to temple worship and agricultural wealth. The goddess Ninsan was the mother of Gilgamesh. Marduk was seen as Amaru Utu, bull calf of the sun god Utu. A curious observation, Musushu, the forked-tongued dragon or serpent, was a divine protector of Marduk and Nabu. also known as the furious snake, splendid dragon, and also the reddish snake. Mushrooms and snakes historically had close affinities, and since Amanita muscaria has a red pilus, is it possible Musushu and the name for the sacred mushroom? Although there is limited evidence of ceremonial mushroom use in ancient Sumeria, there are a few artifacts I find interesting. Marduk and other Sumerians are shown wearing mushroom penis head attire, and Marduk was known as the canal digger, and the Maru, or spade, was the symbol. The Maru was the divine image of Marduk himself. Even though the Maru is identified as a spade for digging canals, I would suspect that Maru is the sacred mushroom. King Shogi of Ur, who reigned from 2094 to 2047 BC, is depicted as carrying a basket of earth for building the ziggurats. The most well-known is this foundation marker of King Shogi holding the basket upside down, giving a very mushroom appearance. So Marduk is Amaru, Utu, Musushu, and Maru, just as Shiva is Soma in the Hindu tradition. The Minoan and Mycenaean era, 3000 to 1100 BC. Much like the previous cultures, considered cattle sacred and very important in their religious ceremonies, they being symbols of power, strength, and fertility, were ritually sacrificed. Anointing vessels called rhytons have been found, such as the bull's head and the lion's head rhytons. As usual, not much is known of the ethnomycology of this era. The city of Mycenae was discovered when Poseidon dropped his scabbard and found a mushroom there. It must have been a sacred mushroom to be of that importance. Then we have these artifacts: Our Lady of the Griffins, the Master of Animals, and the gold death masks of the era. As we move into the Greek and Roman era, 1000 BC to 476 AD, it becomes obvious that the entheogenic mushroom held an important place in the mythology and ceremonial life. Besides the Eleusinian mysteries, which most likely had a fungal component in its ritual kykeon, we have several artifacts that portray mushroom use. As other cultures, cattle and bulls signified strength, fertility, and divine power. Zeus transformed into a bull, and the bull leaping was a ritualistic display during Dionysic celebrations. And of course, we have the half-man, half-bull, the Minotaur. A good example of entheogenic mushroom use is the pre-Christian cult of Mithra. Although worship of Mithra predates Rome, Mithricism flourished in the 3rd century Rome, as did Christianity. The main fundamental feature was the slaying of the bull by Mithra, or the tauroctony. Dr. Karl Ruck provided strong evidence that suggests that Amanita muscaria was ritually used. If you look at the tauroctony, you will see the bull represents the stem of the mushroom, and Mithra's red attire is the pallius. Cautes and Cautopates both wear the red Phrygian cap and have crossed legs symbolizing a red-capped mushroom. In this image, you can also see a mushroom on the edge. In this image, you have the sword of the accord topped by a Phrygian cap and a crown of 7 rays. The same image can be seen on the U.S. Army seal. Another curious image is the skewered bull's meat, which was most likely the mushroom since it is pictured with a raven. Turning to the Hindu world, which brought us the idea of the sacred cow, we find many ancient artifacts that suggest the use of mushrooms, most likely a soma or a surrogate for it. Some images seem to represent Amanita muscaria. However, the sacredness of cattle may have more to do with the Psilocybe cubensis or other dung-inhabiting psilocybin mushrooms. The sacred mount of Shiva is Nandi, and the Lord Krishna was a cowherd or protector of the cows. In Indonesia, we have water buffalo and elephants, whose manure also favors psilocybin mushrooms. In Bali, the mushrooms are so prevalent that they're even served in restaurants to the tourists. Although this practice is a rather new phenomenon, there is some evidence that sacred mushroom was used in the past. In Lapland and Siberia, the reindeer roam the land in search for the Amanita muscaria, which they relish. The shamans also collect them and dry them on the branches of evergreens for future use. During the winter months, when the snow is deep, they enter and exit by the smoke hole of their yurts. The story of the Siberian shaman and his reindeer mixed with the Norse and Christian themes, the Dutch Sinterklaas, and a little artistic reimagining, we have a jolly little elf that delivers presents to all the children of the world with the help of a flying reindeers called Santa Claus. The Moche culture that flourished from 700 to 900 AD in what is now Peru embraced entheogenic plants from the alcoholic chicha, brewed from corn, to coca leaves chewed for vigor and stamina, and San Pedro cactus for inducing visions, facilitate healing, and maintaining community balance. Of course, mushrooms were no exception. Many vessels have been found decorated with Amanita muscaria mushrooms, along with many gold artifacts that are strongly associated with mushrooms. Along with mushroom-influenced artifacts, we also find artistic representations of llamas and alpacas that were sacred and vital to the Moche. On a more speculative note, let's take a look at the early Hopewell civilization in North America, 100 BC to 500 AD. The American bison grazed a large portion of the North American continent, enriching the land with nourishing dung that would support the growth of several species of psilocybin-containing fungi. As evidence of possible knowledge of entheogenic use are a couple of mushroom-shaped artifacts found at ancient burial mounds. There also is an interesting earthen mound at Poverty Point, Louisiana, that although very mushroom-like in appearance, has been possibly identified as a thunderbird or eagle. You would suspect an effigy of a mushroom would be a standing stone with a lintel. However, I don't believe early indigenous natives left any standing stones as other regions of the world, such as an example from India. In conclusion, we see that both cattle and other ruminants, along with entheogenic mushrooms, were linked in sacred rituals of early man.